The cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike says a flawed software update was responsible for a massive outage felt around the world. Airports, banks, stock exchanges, hospitals, and countless other businesses were affected. The company stressed this was not the result of a cyber attack. I want to bring in Dan Ives to give us his analysis. He's a managing director and senior equity analyst for the firm Wedbush Securities, where he focuses on technology and software. Dan, always good to see you. Unfortunately, not in these circumstances, but can you help explain how a single update can seemingly shut everything down?
Yeah, I mean, this all is related to Microsoft because this CrowdStrike update, when it went to Microsoft systems around the world, whether it's airports, transportation, businesses, it basically was code that was, essentially flawed. And that shut down the Microsoft operating system. And this is, look, it was a code red situation for CrowdStrike. It's the biggest global IT outage that we've ever seen in the world, and definitely a black eye moment for CrowdStrike.
Biggest global IT outage. I mean, when we talk about the array of services impacted, the list goes on and on and on. Is it about things being interconnected, or in your opinion, is it like what our guest at the top of the hour said, and that there may be a monopoly here?
Look, I think they've been a gold standard for cybersecurity when it comes to CrowdStrike. Unfortunately, they become a household name around the world, not in a good way like NVIDIA, but in a bad way. So from a brand perspective, that's something they're going to have to spend weeks and months ahead trying to contain that. But it does speak to just the strong get stronger. In tech, we're not talking about 30, 40 companies. There's really a core 10 to 20 that run the global IT infrastructure.
So that said, what do we need to learn in terms of backup plans when something like this happens?
Well, I think that's really in Redmond. I mean, from Microsoft. Microsoft's going to be looking at this closely to see how this never happens again. From an update perspective, to cause really a historical IT outage. That's something that we're going to see over the coming weeks, months. I'm sure lawmakers are going to be focused on this as well. But this, look, it is a black eye moment, not just for CrowdStrike, but for the cybersecurity industry. And I think this even comes in the heel last week, right? The AT&T cyber hack. So unfortunately, this is not the news you want to see.
That said, are nefarious people watching? People who think, man, I could just, I could do one thing to this one company and have this devastating impact?
The bad actors are always watching. So when something like this happens, it's no different than, a house with the door open and robbers, look by on the street. I mean, it's not a good situation because it shows the vulnerability. And the bad actors, like they always do around the world, will look at this, analyze it, and look at ways that they could ultimately benefit financially.
It might be too dystopian to mention this, but my immediate thought was the Netflix movie Leave the World Behind with Ethan Hawke and Julia Roberts. And it's just like, you zap it and we literally can do nothing. But Dan, that said, people who had a surgery rescheduled, couldn't reach a 911 dispatcher, couldn't access money in their bank, couldn't get to wherever they needed to go to on their flight. Now, we haven't heard specific stories of this happening, but we know these services have been impacted. What recourse, if any, do they have?
Well, if you're a lawyer for CrowdStrike right now, I don't think you're going to be seeing the beach too much this summer. I mean, there's going to be months, probably years of litigation, legal issues that they're going to have to deal with. This is not going to go smoothly in terms of, as this all plays out. It's the biggest global IT outage, and there's not 100 companies involved. It's one. It's CrowdStrike. But I think their CEO, George Kurtz, one of the best out there ahead of this damage control, and I don't think this negatively impacts the company for the long term.
All right, Dan Ives, thank you.
Thank you.